This is the iPega touchpad Bluetooth controller for the phone uh, and tablets if you want to use it that way. This is an interesting little device. I've never really been one to play games on my phone, mainly because I hated being able to control the games with the screen. I didn't like that. I've always been one that's used the controller like the PlayStation 3 controller. And this one's similar in design to that. This is iPega's latest version um, that they seem to have made some improvements on. I haven't really used the previous versions, but I've researched the previous versions and seen the reviews and complaints of the previous version. And iPega seems to have tried to go and make some improvements to this particular one. Um, with this controller, you get the instruction booklet, which I'll put here, and the USB charger. That's what comes with it. Um, as you can see, I've got mine attached here, my Samsung Galaxy on the holder that's attached. Um, this thing's an interesting device. It's not perfect. There's some things that probably could be improved. Like for one, the instruction book could be a little bit better with it. Like a lot of these new devices that seem to come out, electronic devices, instructions are not always so clear. These are okay, but could be a little better. Uh, the big thing for me is I think the pairing's a little complicated compared to what I'm normally used to for most pairing of things. There's 4 modes on this to pair, and depending on what mode you need to use at the time for whatever particular game you're using it for, you have to pair it that way, which is a little complicated. I wish they would simplify that down to just word pair and work to do whatever it needs to for the particular game that it's on. Um, the other thing is this thing's a little thick compared to my PlayStation 3 controller. And with you have the phone in it, it's a little top heavy too, but it's a little thick, thicker than probably what I'd like it to be. I wish it was a little thinner, um, for holding purposes, comfort purposes. The other thing is the holder that holds the phone, which I think some people have complained about in previous versions, looks a little fragile. I could see this thing, the holder itself, kind of failing over time. It's made of plastic. Maybe should be a little bit stronger material, maybe, for that particular purpose. I mean, it does hold tightly, but I could see that thing breaking over time. Now, the things that, on the positive side, though, that they've done for this controller over their previous versions is they add a touchscreen here, um, and they add the trigger buttons on the, which you can't see with where my phone is, but the trigger buttons, the left-right trigger button, similar to like a PlayStation 3, which are good additions, especially if you're playing some different types of games that utilize those functions. Uh, the controller charged fairly quickly. When I first plugged it in, it just a couple hours and it's good to go. And the battery life seems to be pretty good. I know that was one of the complaints for previous iPegas. This battery life seems to be pretty decent for this new version. They seem to improve that. Another complaint in previous ones was the Bluetooth signal. That also seemed to have been improved because I've not had any issues with that at all. So, I loaded up my first game with this called Dungeon Hunter. You have to kind of search for the games. There's a lot of games that work okay with this. Of course, some games do not yet, maybe, because this is relatively newer type of technology coming out. So you have to kind of hunt for the games that will play with this. But the Dungeon Hunter, I was actually number one, I was impressed with the game. I'd never played it before. Number two, the controller responds really well, and the buttons work good. The touch screen works good. I actually almost forgot I wasn't using a PlayStation 3, or, a PSP. It worked really well. Again, this controller is lightweight, but with the phone attached, it's top heavy. And the touch screen works well. Everything else seems to respond pretty well. This is a pretty good improvement, it appears, over the previous versions. The design isn't perfect, but it's pretty good overall. I'm going to try to demonstrate a little bit of the controller here uh, to show you. It is responsive. It does move around pretty good. Uh, the buttons work. The touch screen works. The touch screen works on here. Uh, and I mean, again, it's fairly good little controller. I'm fairly pleased with it. Overall, I rate this 4 stars. It's a bit expensive at $65. And again, there's some functionality imperfections and some design imperfections that don't make this 5 stars, but it is pretty decent at 4 stars.